Hey guys, welcome back. Just doing a quick video. Ryan and I were very excited when we saw this card coming out, so we thought we'd just pump a video out on it real quick, just some first impressions and just some ideas about Blade. Ryan, how you going, brother?
Hey, I'm doing great. Really happy to talk about one of my favorite Marvel characters.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those. He's one of those characters that people forget he is a Marvel character. Because like you remember the movies and like unless you read the comic books, you would never associate that with Marvel, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It's that whole like weird section of Marvel with like vampires and like the occult is kind of sometimes forgotten, but I'm really excited that it's sort of getting into the game now. And if you weren't worried about mystic attacks before, well, you should be now.
Yeah, poor Wakanda.
Yeah, like, Wakanda stocks are down.
Yeah, or at least at a minimum, Black Panther stocks are down because Wakanda's actually, as a faction, not that bad against Mystic because they can get a reroll on everyone. But you have to you can't do what Panther needs to do with the amount of Mystic attacks out there right now. Like he can just die out of nowhere at any time, and every roster has Mystic in it now.
Yeah, especially with we're going to talk about Mr. Eric Brooks's standard builder attack, but like it's a doozy. And like, I mean, do you want to start with his stat line? Do you want to start with his attacks?
Start at the top and work our way down. So I'll hit the stat line. So 6 health and 4 threat. So 6 health is huge. That's basically my minimum for something to be like in the top 5 of those threat slots. For 4 and 3 threat. So 6 health, medium mover, size 2. Do we see what base size he was?
He's small. He's small.
Cool.
Yeah, he's small.
So standard, like nothing crazy on the medium move. 6 health's great. 4 physical, that's a massive thumbs up. 3 energy, that's good. And 4 mystic is really good. So his defense line, that's rock solid. Really happy with that.
It only gets better when we talk about his superpowers, but a couple things to note. His injured side also has 6 health, so it doesn't change. His card's identical on both sides, so don't worry about that.
I was going to ask about that.
I think I don't know, in terms of the differences in defenses, right? I actually don't think that you get that much of a bump in the energy and mystic when it comes to like the difference between a 3 and a 4 or 2 and 3. Like it's because of how good attacks are in this game. But I do think that 4 over 3 physical is really big simply for dodge rolls.
Yep, that's huge. So dodge rolls is up. Also, the most standard like spam attack is nearly always going to be physical. So having just your best defense sitting there is great. And I've also found that Mystic in particular, typically whoever's using that attack is fairly specialized and probably has rerolls. So having 3 or 4 defense doesn't really change it that much. Like they're probably going to put down 4 or 5 damage anyway. So I mean, having 4 is obviously better than 3, but it's not crazy. Do you want to hit his attacks?
Yeah, I'll hit them. So we got the katana, which is his range 2 5 dice mystic builder. A lot of people are asking why is the katana mystic? It depends on the lore of Blade, but a lot of times it's like dipped in holy water and it's like a magic sword essentially.
Cool.
In a lot of the comics. So really sweet. So you gain power equal damage dealt, standard, but even if you don't deal damage, it just gets bleed. No matter what, it's doing bleed. And the only other character right now that does that is Venom, I think, on his tendrils. And on a 5 dice, he's got the wild pierce, which we'd love to see.
Yeah,
right. So this thing's gonna hit. It's gonna hit really, really hard. And then you've got physical throwing glaives, which are a range 4 dice builder, quote unquote. It's the one that gives you just a power for doing the attack. You don't have to deal damage with a wild bleed. And I want to, like, real quick before we go on to his spender, talk about these sorts of attacks because I think they always get glossed over as like, oh, it's the range 4 dice, whatever. Like, this isn't quite as good as Moon Knight's. However, like, it's really, really nice to have a ranged option that gives you power.
Yep.
There are tons and tons of games, especially on the opening, if you can just plink and get 1 more power to set yourself up for the next round, it can be huge. And even more so because of his leadership, getting that free power is huge.
Absolutely. Plus, I was really glad you wanted to pause here because I was going to ask you to. I'm finding more and more that the characters that have this little middle attack are typically going to be the ones that we would slot into that meta pick, because it's just a way of just automatically gaining a power gain for whatever you need, whether it's just, hey, I just need to gain 2 power this turn to get a field dressing off or whatever.
Yep.
It's guaranteed, and there's a little bit of extra spice there in that he can add bleed onto it. And the more characters, we've seen a lot of characters coming out now where their standard builder attack has that triple dot point. As soon as I see 3 dot points on an attack, you know it's going to be spicy, right? And when that's in your builder, oh man, that's good.
Yeah, you love to see that. And let's also not forget that, I mean, we always kind of just say, like, pretend 4 dice is like rolling 0 dice. But, I mean, you roll enough dice in a game, like, those 4 dice can spike. Like, you can get, like, a double crit hit and then end up with, like, 5 hits on one of these. Like, it's not something that we know how many times, like, in the game do we roll dice and someone just explodes on 4. It happens. It just does.
And it's the one that, it always is the one you remember, because it's the one where you're just like, what just happened? What just happened to my guy? That shouldn't happen. I think we're going to hear a lot more about 4 dice attacks once Moon Knight hits that table as well.
Absolutely. Do you want to talk about Knight of the Damper?
Yes, please. So this one, I like that they've actually increased the range to 3 as well, so it can kind of tie in with that throwing glaives if you need it to. So you can do like a quick cheeky bleed, and then range 3 on this builder, this big power attack is excellent. So range 3, 7 dice, 4 power. If the target character has the bleed special condition, you may reroll any number of attack dice. It applies bleed, just guaranteed.
Great.
Yep, and when it's done, after the attack is resolved, you advance medium. This is amazing because there's no wilds, there's no nothing. These 3 things will happen no matter what, as long as there's a little condition at the top that says, as long as they're bleeding first, which your standard katana applies bleed automatically, or on your throwing glaives there's a little Hail Mary bleed on there, this attack is going to hit hard.
Yeah, I think it's really important to talk about this, the combinations of things he can do with his attacks before we get to his superpowers, because the way you want to play Blade is crazy interesting. Because actually, let's talk about that after his superpowers. But essentially, if you can get the 4 power to finish off with the Knight of the Dampier and then kind of pull back and get back onto a point, that's really great. But there's also all this really interesting play with you. Blade wants to be around people who are bleeding, so it'll be really interesting to see how players decide where they want to place him, essentially.
Absolutely, and I think Venom will probably see a bit of play within this faction for 2 reasons.
Yes.
One, he hands out auto bleed, and his so many snacks, slapback, counterattack hands out auto bleed if you do the symbiote tendrils, so you can actually hand out that a lot. But this number 1, so the Midnight Suns affiliation, their leadership ability, Bump in the Night, once per turn, so not per round like X-Men, once per turn, at any time during an allied character's activation, it may spend 1 power. If it does, place that character within 1 of its current position. So already amazing. So your guys can now reposition. The amount of times where you just get displaced by a small throw, you can now bring yourself back in. This is awesome. To top it off, the bigger your base size, the bigger this movement's going to be. So medium base like Venom, large base like Ghost Rider, I think you said he's an affiliation. These are really big movements for 1 power.
Well, I mean, you just mentioned Venom, and one of the best ways you counter Venom is by pulling around, moving him or whatever. But man, just being like, oh, you know what? Because of Venom's range 3 attack, right? You are that's a lot of movement for him, like a lot.
Yep.
And it's excellent. A couple other interesting things. I was in TTS this morning, and I think other people have been doing this too. But if you're right, even with a small base, if you're right on the edge of range 3, and you do this, you pull yourself actually out of range 4.
Very nice.
Yeah, so even on a small base, you're able to do that if you're just clipping range 3, and you do this because of the distances between range 3 and range 4. So you're able to kind of just like scoot yourself out. So there is like utility there, but I think where we'll see this the most is in a lot of attrition based stuff, being able to place yourself and get your double attacks. Like we're seeing that more and more and more. We saw huge success from X-Men this season, being able to get the Storm leadership or the Cable slide and just placing yourself and then getting two attacks, and just shredding people's with superior action economy. And
Exactly.
then last thing, Jay, I'll mention about this is it does synergize with Ghost Spider and Kraven's place/move abilities. So Ghost Spider could place herself with this, do a pop, her spider technique, 4 dice into 7 dice, and then after that 7 dice, get a long move. Or if you have enough power, place a spider technique, then a 6 dice spider technique, 7 die or freestyle beatdown, then a 7 dice spider technique, then a long move. So, and then Kraven can do similar type monstrous things.
Ghost Spider is just so good, isn't she?
She's amazing, and we've been waiting for we've been waiting for an ability that gives her like some sort of placement or whatever. And I think that she could also slot really nicely in because it looks like Midnight Suns are really begging for some kind of control piece too.
Absolutely, and you've basically just hit the nail on the head. Like this leadership ability is a delivery platform, which there is a lot of characters in the game right now which do a lot of damage and can really punch it out with the best characters in the game, but they are always left on the side of the table and not in rosters because they lack their self-delivery platform. They're relying on someone else to get them there. Yep. Bump in the night, I think you're going to see some really interesting characters slot into this affiliation, and they can really catch you off guard. Characters like Vision, which slid out of the meta. Vision, all of a sudden, if he can just reposition himself, and he already has flush with power, can now reposition and really utilize his beam attacks to do just maximum damage. It can be quite scary, I think.
Yeah, the moving for double beams are really great, especially with Sam Spam coming. When I look at Blade's card right now, just that leadership, there are so many possibilities for splash characters for Midnight Suns. Tons. Like I'm like having a really hard time deciding like who I want to put in to splash with, because I mean we don't know affiliation yet, but we know Moon Knight will be in it, and I'm about 99% Ghost Rider will be in it, and then from there it's sort of a toss up. So like who are you going to use for your core grouping, and most importantly, like how are you going to figure out what to splash in? So I would love to see like how people. I mean, the obvious choice is, we'll just put Enchantress and MODOK in there, right? Because that's great. Yeah. But I think there's some other spicy plays to be had here.
Yeah, exactly. Or just as good. I would love to see just while we're talking their affiliation, and on the topic of it, I'd love to see them just receive an additional 3-pointer in affiliation, and then these guys will be top tier. Because if they have to go a 4-threat, a 5-threat, and a 3-threat, that will really slow them down, but also will probably control them so they don't just go crazy as well.
Well, you ready for this? Wong has led Midnight Suns before. I would not be at all surprised, not at all, to see Wong in affiliation as a 2-threat.
He's not a good 2-threat, but in affiliation where like this, you would actually really consider that, just to bring the affiliation down as low as possible to bring in some big hitters.
That's what I'm saying. Like Wong, if he's in affiliation, adds like a lot of worth there, because you can do the Wakanda 9-point core basically. You can do Blade, Moon Knight, Wong at 9, and then that allows you to fit all kinds of great splash in there. Wong is a totally serviceable backline objective holder.
Oh, absolutely, and he'll be doing he'll be doing actually really good there, because you can hold him at the back line. He can pay a power, and he already is flush with power normally because he can kind of just charge himself up.
Yep.
Teleport himself forward, heal somebody, and then walk backwards. Like he's got some cool shenanigans there. So we'll hit his other superpowers now, because as you guys can tell, we are excited about this. This is the first affiliation in a long time I've been really keen on. So Half-Blood Physiology. 1 power, this character immediately performs a shake action. Now, I'm just going to ask the dumb question here. This doesn't count as one of your actions, right, Farmer? This is a superpower.
No, it's a superpower. It would need to have the action header. It's the same sort of thing as charge. When it says action, you perform a move action, then an attack, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not one of your actions. This is, I looked at this whole card, but this was the ability that made me go, I want to play Blade, because, which is a weird one to say that for, but we are in a time with Scarlet Witch and a lot of characters right now that are putting out conditions. And we're seeing Cassandra Nova being able to throw out roots and all this other stuff. And the shake action is one that how many times we did a whole podcast episode on like conditions, and you usually don't ever want to get rid of them, and then long term it's just annoying but with this, you can get rid of that one really annoying shock or Hex. It would be really bad for him with his infinite rerolls on his katana. I love this. It suddenly makes Blade very like Asgard in terms of you're not going to be able to control him the way you control other characters. And in addition, I got that poison from Omega Red. No, I didn't. It's fine.
Oh, this is one of the, this is like, as I was reading down through his superpowers going, that's amazing. This is the one that struck me as like, this is spectacular. Now, next thing I'm going to ask about this, it doesn't say once per round.
It certainly does not.
So if you're flushed with power and you've just been pimp slapped by a Scarlet Witch and you've got 4 conditions on you, could you pay this for 4 times?
Yes, you could. There's nothing stopping you from doing it.
So I'm out here representing the dummies, so I'm always asking these questions like, is it an action? No, because I guarantee you there'll be a tabletop somewhere where somebody says, but it's in the words there that it says action. It's a superpower, and guys, it doesn't say once per round. So
yeah,
conditions will not stick to this guy as long as he has power. So this is unbelievable. Do you want to hit his next one?
Yeah, so we have supernatural senses. When this character is defending against a physical or mystic attack, after rolling its defense dice, it may use this superpower. This character may reroll any number of its defense dice, including skull results, to power. This is incredible. Anyone who knows me knows I've been playing and loving Amazing Spider-Man, right? Who gets this for free, essentially, if you're in the Miles leadership. But this is such a good ability. And again, Blade, I feel like, is going to be a character that you need to be a good player to get right, because you have to manage his power economy really, really, really well. Because you're going to want to use this to keep yourself alive, but you don't want to use it too often because you still want to get power. Does that make sense? So It's really like you have to pick and choose when you want to bolster, because we'll get to his next superpower in a second. Sometimes you're going to want to take hits, and then sometimes you're going to want to bolster your defenses. But when you do choose to bolster your defenses, I mean, good luck hitting him with a physical or mystic attack. Oh yeah,
very, very strong. And rerolling skulls, like this would have been spectacular without that. And then to just add in, hey guys, you can also just reroll skulls, because why not? Yep. It's amazing. It's so good. And 2 power, like I can just picture Blade. Those 2 superpowers are good enough that he can see action in Cabal, where he's getting double power, so he's just keeping his supernatural senses online from his damage.
Yeah.
Avengers, like just the age-old Avengers. This is a 1 power of superpower, he's not going to see any benefit on his shake action, but 1 power reactive, just reroll all defense dice is just amazing, right?
I mean, he's tickling. I still think you prefer him as a leader in Midnight Suns, but he has enough going for him that he's tickling that 4.5 range, right, of a 4-point character. He is at the upper end. Like this isn't Corset Parker, right? You're like, okay, he's a 3.8. This guy is monstrous. Do you want to finish off with Vampiric Immortality?
Yes, sir. So at the end of this character's activation, it gains 1 power and removes 1 wound from itself for each other character within 2 of it that has a bleed special condition. That is cool.
So a couple things to note about this, and I want to make sure that we're very clear on Vampiric Immortality. It does not specify enemy characters. So if your opponent is slapping bleeds on your friends and stuff, you're hanging out with them, you're getting a ton of power for that.
That is interesting.
So if you're playing against another Blade or against another Venom or something like that, you are actually benefiting from your friends getting bleeds on them. And I've seen a couple timing hiccups here for people. Like, remember, the bleed conditions are not removed until the end phase. So if Blade dazes someone and puts a bleed condition on them, it still triggers even though they're dazed, because they need to be flipped for that to go away.
Correct. Just in case they get field dressed or whatever.
And this is finally that we got to this. This is the key part of the card that dictates how you play Blade. Because Blade is one of these guys that you sort of want to activate. I think he's a middle activation character, because if you activate him at the end, then, and he hasn't been attacked at all, you're not really getting a ton of benefit in terms of the wound removal. But if you activate him at the beginning, he's also kind of full health as well. You want like to get in there and like wreck people, and then potentially still have some like health to give, because ideally you're attacking in a way that people are going to punch you back. And if you take, I don't know, like let's say you're taking a couple damage, then you don't have to use your supernatural senses, because you want to take the damage and you want to power up. And then you can activate, get a power, get a bleed, or get a power, remove damage, and then you're powered up for supernatural senses for kind of the last part of the round.
Exactly, the second half of it.
Yeah.
I really like him as in that 4 threat slot, because he's got such intense attacks, right? The katana has pierce, it has a bleed, it is mystic. His big attack has a reroll all like on it. It can give out bleed as well, and he can get an advance. He is definitely touching that 4.5, almost 5 threat mark, because like having a mystic attacker like that sitting in the 4 threat slot, like we do have other 4 threat mystic attackers out there, but none I think they're going to do the damage that he's going to be doing.
No, I mean, nothing like this. It's, I mean, what, you're looking at Hela, right? Like, you're looking at,
yep.
Like, we do not have 4 threat bruisers, mystic bruisers, quite like this. Now, I say that now, I mean, we have a huge wave of mystic attackers coming in, like, like this month, right?
Yeah.
And next month. So, that is remained to be seen. I think a big takeaway from the competitive community on this is, you can no longer build a roster and just pretend that Mystic is a dump stat, and that your Mystic defense is a dump stat, and that's something you don't have to worry about. That was already sort of disappearing last season with Wanda, but now it's even like extra true, because this guy is an affiliation leader.
Oh yeah, and he's one of those like Marvel characters that he has a lot of fans. So, and this affiliation like leadership ability is good enough that you're going to see a lot of people playing this guy, and it's not just going to be a fad where he's the new hotness. I think he's going to see heaps of play even leading into the future with new affiliations coming out.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I have a couple final like questions for you here, buddy, before we sign off. Are there any, we don't know the affiliation specific tactics cards on this guy, but are there any tactics cards that come to mind that like maybe pair nicely with him that you like, either from the restricted list or otherwise?
Straight away, I think this is going to be, he's definitely going to be flush with power once he gets a good activation. So you're not going to be upset. Obviously, there's the stock standard bit of rivals. Climbing gear, I think, will be great in his affiliation, because you're going to do like a teleport, attack, walk back kind of thing, which is really cool. Yep. I can't really think of, like, maybe like a follow me would be kind of cool. I would not be surprised to see a blade finish with 6 power, and then you can dump 6 power into trying to double activate, you know, Ghost Rider nearby or something like that. So if you're going down that attrition path.
Yeah, I actually, there are a lot of tactics cards that you feel are just like, man, it's just like really, really expensive. But sort of because of his power generation, you're able to, because of his power generation, you're able to
consider it.
Yeah, consider it for sure.
But yeah, I can't really think of any off the top of my head without, you know, actually sitting down. Like, I literally read this card, guys, like minutes before Farmer texted me and said, we need to do a video right now.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just hyped about him. I'm super pumped about him. I can't wait to see who else is in affiliation. I can't wait to see what the rest of the tactics cards look like. This character will reward you for getting into the fray and attacking, which is something we really love to see. And I will say this though, buddy, the better you are at killing things, the less effective Blade gets over time. He's an early game monster while there are a lot of characters out, But as the game begins to, characters are removed from the table, that's fewer characters you're putting bleeds on, right, with the KOs to get that power and get the damage reduction. So that is something to keep in mind as you're playing him, that like you want to pump him up early and take advantage of him while you can fully utilize those powers.
Which is so good to see that happening, because we don't have heaps of characters like that. I just had chills while I was sitting there thinking about like different characters that can just try and abuse his bump in the night. And like, I just thought of Carnage just then. You know, Carnage lacks a delivery platform. Man, you throw Carnage in here, some Carnage specific cards. All of a sudden, you know, Carnage, he's a medium base, so he's going to get heaps of a really advantageous movement out of that bump in the night. Just oof.
Here, I'm gonna
chills.
Before we sign out, Jay, I'm gonna just send you this picture that I'd want you to just bring up on the screen if you can. This is just illustrating a bump in the night kind of range there. It's the picture. You've got like Zemo, which would be obviously, or anybody. Yeah, it could be anybody. It could be Zemo. Just inside range 3 of like Beast, and then
that's
if
cool.
You do a bump in the night, you move outside of range 4. So Beast, that doesn't matter. But like for characters that have big range 4 attacks,
which there's a few out there now. That's great, where you can come in and potentially do your own attacks and then just take yourself to safety. Like it's really cool that this is quite a versatile super like leadership ability, where you can use it aggressively, or you can use it to just, you know what? Nope, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm leaving.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for the preview, Jay. As
no worries,
usual.
man. Happy to do it. It's good to get some content out. I've seen some characters getting spoiled, but a lot of them are just kind of stock standard characters, so haven't bothered doing any insights into them. But I think this guy definitely deserves it. But thanks for coming on, Farmer.
Sure thing, buddy.
Thanks, brother. Peace out, guys.